The Arizona Cardinals going into the season fighting below their weight class, or should they be on upset alert? And the Saints, they're down a key defensive player. Is that going to play a big role come Sunday? Bo Brack hanging out with us. You know the drill. Just like and subscribe to PHNX Sports here. We got our guy Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints, the best in the biz as far as content creation goes for the Saints over there, Locked On Podcast Network, doing great things. Ross, how are we feeling going into this season, my man?
Oh, man, feeling great. Glad football's here, and even more glad to be here with you, man. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. Old friends here, reconnecting, talking some ball. We love this matchup. You know, we look at just kind of from our seat what's going on with the Saints, and it's just like when you go to visit New Orleans, I think people don't get the nuances of the city. They're like, go to Bourbon Street, get yourself a hurricane and get yourself some gumbo and stuff, but they don't know all the great stuff that you can discover there. When we look at this team from the outsider's perspective, it looks like they're on the verge of a rebuild, teardown situation. What is it really from your seat?
Yeah, I'd certainly call it a rebuild more than a teardown, only because they were kind of forced into this situation, Bo. You want to talk about some of the nuances, right? Like get off of Bourbon Street, go a couple blocks down, all that. Going a couple blocks down, what you find is that Derek Carr retired, Tyrann Mathieu retired, and that kind of put this team in a situation where we're like, well, dang, I guess we got to rebuild then. And so they've actually kind of undergone a bit of that process. It really kind of started with the draft selection of Tyler Shuck at 40th overall in the NFL draft. He's the highest drafted quarterback here in New Orleans since Archie Manning in 1971. If you throw in the supplemental draft, then I guess we'll go Dave Wilson, but that's still in the 80s. So it's been a minute, right? So I think that, yeah, this is an absolute rebuild for this team. New head coach, new starting quarterback. Of course, Spencer Rattler won out on that competition with the young rookie in Tyler Shuck. And of course, new defense, new play callers, all of that. A lot of newness here for this New Orleans Saints team. And while they might not like to use the word rebuild, we certainly do when we're talking about it.
Yeah, just being realistic, I think with, the writing on the wall, we were there in 2023. Cardinals kind of feel like they're kind of on the other side of this thing. When we start to kind of break down this matchup, we see a key absence there on the injury report. On Friday, it was Chase Young ruled out for the game after he suffered a calf injury earlier this week in practice. How big of a loss is that for the Saints defense?
Yeah, that's pretty big, man. This new defensive scheme was brought in order to really be able to support guys like Chase Young and sort of walk into this first week's matchup without him. That's a big hit for New Orleans, who have had some trouble maintaining the contain when it comes to mobile quarterbacks, something Kyler Murray does very, very well, and have had some trouble as well as the 31st overall ranked rushing defense last year in rushing yards. And so you lose a guy that has been not just a premier pass rusher or that you hope returns to form, let me say, as a premier pass rusher, but also a guy that helped you out tremendously in the run game. Now, all of a sudden, you're without him. So now, not only are they without him, but they're having to turn to a 15-year vet in Cam Jordan to now play probably 50, 60 snaps in this game. And so I would expect probably guys to rotate a lot now on the edge in a way that maybe they wouldn't with Chase Young. So an opportunity there to lose a little bit of rhythm for the New Orleans Saints pass rush.
Cam Jordan's one of those guys that everybody roots for around here because he went to high school in Arizona, and they're proud of where he's going to go, where he's been in his NFL career. It's just you weren't expecting him to be playing this much in year 15. Same thing goes for Calais Campbell on the Cardinals side of things too, 39 years old. But it's when we were in 2023, it's Jonathan Gannon, it's Nick Rallis, it's Drew Petzing. We're so curious what it was going to look like from an X's and O's standpoint. You've got some tape on Kellen Moore. You've got, of course, Nussmeier there as well, helping him as far as the offensive side. And then Brandon Staley, head coach, DC. What's your expectation as far as from kind of the top, the coach and the coordinators there?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of new looks for this New Orleans Saints team, a team that was, built in sort of this vision of Sean Payton, and then they tried to move away from that to the Pete Carmichael version of Sean Payton, which never really got off the ground. And then they went after the Shanahan tree, going to the wide zone offense last year, which got them some success early on in the season, but injuries and, well, just predictability as a whole kind of got in their way by the time that the season was said and done. So with Kellen Moore, you get a little bit more unpredictability. This is a guy that scrolls the internet at night to see what high schools are doing and to see if he can steal something from that play to use in the upcoming weekend. Like the guy's, a mastermind in that way. And so do I think you're going to see all of that week one? No, but do I think that that's something that you're building as a New Orleans Saints franchise with Kellen Moore at the helm? Absolutely. And so I expect a lot of the run game for this team, for them to utilize a lot outside, man zone, inside, all that. And I expect a lot of crossing routes, trying to create some confusion for this really aggressive and exotic set of pass rush pressure systems that Jonathan Gannon and Rallis, those guys like to dial up. And so how do you use that aggression in a way? And then over on the defensive side, Brandon Staley does what he does, right? They're going to a 3-4 defense. They'll use those stand-up edge rushers. They're going match coverage over on the outside. They're watching the patterns of the wide receivers and basing their coverage off of that. They're making these live adjustments in game. So there's a lot going on that's going to be brand new for this team here in this first game. It'll be interesting to see how much they maybe get in their own way learning all of this stuff versus anything that the Arizona Cardinals are doing, right? Who are going to make it, of course, even more complicated on New Orleans as they learn everything new here. But if they can hit the ground running, it should be a really entertaining matchup.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation. I watched Kellen Moore's opening press conference for the week. He was very complimentary of Rallis and JG. And, JG in turn was like, Kellen Moore's track record against me is unbelievable. A guy had a couple 40 burgers, a 50 burger on him. I mean, those were the Cowboys, Eagles for the most part. Right. And then Brandon Staley, there's a ton of familiarity. I think even JG and Staley were in each other's weddings. There's the great relationship there. And
I think they played like basketball or something together in like the 4th grade. Like,
exactly.
It's incredible.
Yeah. They go way back as we do, but there's a lot of familiarity there. But then you're going to look at the roster, pit that versus each other. When you look at this matchup, you talked about a little bit of as far as the run game, what the strength of the Saints and where they could potentially try to expose the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's going to have to be in the run game. And the kind of unfortunate part for New Orleans is that there's also now Josh Sweat and Dalvin Tomlinson to deal with. And so it's not going to be the easiest thing to do in the world. But that's the thing they're going to have to start to figure out, because beyond anything they want to do scheme-wise, it's a young quarterback in Spencer Rattler, also, of course, from the Arizona area, that is getting his 7th career NFL start, has no wins in his career, mostly because he was surrounded by a bunch of practice squad guys throughout the season last year and those opportunities that he got. And so this is just an opportunity to start to build around him and get him comfortable. And nothing makes a young quarterback more comfortable than being able to turn around and hand the ball off to an Alvin Kamara, being able to, get some of these quick passes and things like that out. You saw the way that Philadelphia won in the opening game in the in Thursday Night Football after Spitgate or whatever happened earlier on in that game. A lot of it was Jalen Hurts didn't throw a football deep down the field. It was a lot of dink and dunk and take what the defense gives you. I expect the Saints to kind of go that path as well and try to support their young quarterback by getting him in a rhythm in the passing game and supporting him with the run game.
I got 2 more questions for you. The Saints pull off the upset if this happens.
Finding a run defense, that's got to be number one for New Orleans. They'll have no shot if they can't do that. So I think that it really comes down to that. Again, like I mentioned, this team was 31st in the NFL in 2024, but that was a different year, different defense, different scheme, different minds, all that. So maybe they have some opportunity to improve here. But even going back to last year, we saw Arizona as a top 10 team in 20 plus yard runs, and the number 1 team tied with the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles in 40 plus yard runs. Yeah. The Saints give up a lot of explosive plays last year in the run game. So that's got to be the first and foremost thing. They can win if they do that, but they certainly can't if they don't.
What intrigues you most from your spot about this Cardinals team? And we'll get out on that. Any like player or storyline that you're doing your research that you're intrigued by?
I love the pressure packages. Pressure will come from anywhere on that defense. Gannon, Rallis, those guys are mad scientists when it comes to dialing up pressure. They'll send it from the linebacker spot, but they'll send extra blitzers from corner, from safety. They'll do whatever. They'll simulate pressure by showing you something pre-snap and then dropping those guys out. the thing that I love that they do so well is that they force you into the adjustment that they want you to make, and then they attack that adjustment on the back end. So it's just really good foresight. It's really good game planning and film study. It's what today's NFL is built off of. I'm not going to be surprised when, I'm hoping not for y'all very quickly, but it's not going to be very surprising for me once Rallis is getting those head coaching calls here in the next couple of years, because I think he absolutely deserves it with the way that he's helped to dial up some of that pressure. And Rich, Gannon, this has always been what it is that he does for his defense. Jonathan Gannon. I said Rich Gannon. Right. That's the wrong position.
Wrong guy. But both at high levels in their respective positions in this sport.
Sure.
But unbelievable insight from our guy Ross Jackson. Make sure you're following along. You're subscribed to Locked On Saints on YouTube. You're listening to it wherever you find podcasts. There's nobody better, and we're so thankful that you joined us here today, man. Thank you so much, Ross.
My pleasure, buddy. Thanks so much for having me on. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Looking forward to this one.
You guys subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube.